young king of a kingdom that used to be great. Oh, how he would love to restore his people to reach and power again. He wants them excelling in technology, entertainment, and design. He's a TED fan. So he thinks of a plan. He would invite the nation to send their best and brightest young people to be considered for an accelerated program in the court. And in this court, they would learn and they would become the thought leaders and the culture shapers of tomorrow. The country's buzzing. Every teacher wants a horse in the race. Mr. M sends his scholarship winner. Mr. N sends his spelling bee champ and his general knowledge whiz. Miss O sends a student that achieved 11 A stars at O level. And Mrs. P, a teacher known for doing things a little differently, P stands for prudence, sends Gideon. Gideon has a gift of organizing people, and because of his ADHD, not so much a gift for organizing things. She sends Lily, whose autistic mind is capable of such focus and such capacity in learning that she's doing third-year science, and who often gets herself into trouble when she says exactly what she thinks. She sends Chipo, whose gifted mind already knows most of the content before Mrs. P teaches it, but who seldom does well in these tests because she asks questions of the questions instead of answering them, and because she struggles to manage her anxiety. And she sends Judah, whose truly original ideas are able to come up with completely innovative new ideas. Also, because of his dyslexia, he often misses the obvious ideas that everybody else seems to find so easy. On the day of the selection, there is such an energy. Everybody's excited. The king himself is in attendance. He goes around, does all the testing, does all the question asking, and eventually, after 2 days, addresses an anxious crowd. I have seen amongst my people extraordinary ability to memorize facts. I have seen the ability to apply formulas with impressive speed. And I have seen young people almost never make mistakes. Really impressive. You should know, I have computers that can recall facts with complete accuracy. I have applications that can apply formulas with superhuman speed. And I have machines that really never make mistakes. I'm looking for something different. No, the world needs something different from what we've always said makes a good student. And so I choose Gideon and his future skill of collaboration, even though I see he's not even sitting still as I talk now. And I choose Lily for her willingness to disrupt the status quo even at this auspicious event. And I choose Chipo, who asked questions of the questions that I thought were good questions to ask. And I choose Judah for his future skill of innovation that I see in his unlikely opinions. The things of the past aren't serving us anymore. We need to do something different. You know, what's delightful about our story isn't so much a king taking a chance on an unknown kid kind of thing, but that if you and I got to sit down and had a coffee, and like parents do, talked about our kids, you would probably tell me about the escalating costs of extra lessons, and I could tell you why we send ours to boarding and have a bit of a moan about that. But ultimately, we'd say education. It's the key. It unlocks the future. But what if? What if you and I are also giving our kids skills of the past and asking them to succeed in the future? What if we too are rewarding them for remembering facts when discerning point of view is the future skill they need? What if we're also discouraging mistakes when innovation requires mistakes? And what if we're tying our teachers up? What if we're saying only one way of education and thinking is good when the future needs lots of different opinions? And what if our teachers are so busy and so tired that they have no time or energy to unlock anything new in our kids? No, something has to change. And there's more bad news. Aren't you glad you came to a TED Talk? But it needs to happen really quickly. Let me explain. You might be familiar with this graph. It shows acceleration of technology over time. X-axis, time, and Y-axis, this exploding development in the last 6 or 7 decades. Already, big chunks of work are being done by machines. Computers sifting through CVs to find the right candidate for a job. Entrepreneurs using AI to create social media instead of paying the people that are doing that work. The problem isn't that there's change. It's that we're not keeping up. This is a second graph. This one by Astro Teller of Google X. You see that now familiar exploding line. And this second line, humans' ability to adapt. For most of history, we were okay. We kept up. And now we are here, up in uncharted waters without the tools to navigate them. We don't even know what future skills our kids will need, let alone which ones to give them. What do we do? Today, I want to suggest we do exactly what the King and Mrs. Prudence did. We look at the kids in our classroom and ask, what must we do differently to unlock inherent future skills in the kids in front of us? I see 2 groups in every class. On the one hand, a smaller group of kids who I think have the edge on future skills. I like to call them wonderfully wired. And it's earned them labels like dyslexic, autistic, ADHD, twice exceptional, gifted. On the other hand, a much bigger group for whom education has been okay and who has served them in the past, but who needs something different for a future that looks differently. I wonder if you'll hazard a guess for me how many kids are wonderfully wired. Do you think 2%? Those of us who have kids that are wonderfully wired often think we're a tiny minority and everybody else is fine. 5%? The number is much bigger and harder to ignore. 20%, according to Deloitte, of every classroom is wonderfully wired. That's 1 in 5. And I think that's a really good thing. Because kids with dyslexia have an above average ability to reason, to understand, and to see patterns and alternatives. Kids with ADHD have extraordinary imagination, and when they care about a thing, they have so much focus. Kids with autism have incredible concentration, imagination, and creativity, and all wonderfully wired kids tend to lean towards critical thinking instead of taking information as neutral. Already the workplace is changing. International spy agencies are head-hunting people with dyslexia and autism because they say these brains can solve puzzles with only 2 pieces of that puzzle. Fortune 500 companies are bringing in teams of dyslexics who are solving problems that have been stumping everybody else with their new way of seeing things. But education has not gotten the memo. The special needs program does not see gifts. It only sees deficits. And it tries to standardize kids like items on an assembly line. We've said, sit still, write with a pen, and read with your eyes is what makes a good student. No wonder 20% of kids are struggling. Worldwide, the outcome for wonderfully wired kids is still more likely to be poor mental health, dropping out of school, or delinquency rather than being an international spy or a self-made millionaire. But education's not helping the 80% either. We've said that all kids should learn the same. No, all kids have gifts and weaknesses. We've said mistakes are bad, and that kills any kind of curiosity. And we are testing the life out of any kind of joy of learning. There's only one thing for it. We need to teach every kid in the way that that kid learns. Simple. And I know what you're thinking. And a friend of mine said this over lunch the other day. She said, I'm all about giving everybody a nice chance, but it's just not practical. How does one teacher teach 30 different kids in 30 different ways in one day? And I'll acknowledge it's unreasonable to ask that of our teachers without giving them some kind of superpower. And this is where it gets exciting. Because the same technology that got us into this pickle is giving us a superpower with which to navigate it. And it's called artificial intelligence. I would like us to spend the rest of our time together to just look at what classroom could look like for Mrs. P if she regularly used AI. Full disclosure, there's no way the scope of a talk like this could cover all the potential or all the potential pitfalls of AI. And that's not my job. Mine is to invite an invitation in which we consider how much more time and capacity Mrs. P could have and what she could do with that time. So, first, let's help her with all that busy work. We'll give her a teacher's assistant with unlimited capacity that never sleeps. We'll use conversation systems. And these systems can help her with all those notes to parents, keeping records of attendance, grades, making notes of how her students are doing, creating all those teacher scopes. But Mrs. P will tell you what she really wants is help with the grading. Teachers spend so much time marking books, which they then hand back to students who, let's face it, don't learn so much from it the next day. Well, automation AI could give live feedback to students as they work, like having a tutor at every desk. And finally, mistakes really do become opportunities to learn. And all this time, the AI is feeding back to Mrs. P about how her students are doing in relation to last time. Another thing that takes a lot of time for her is listening to readers that need practice reading aloud. Well, automation AI could help with that too. Students like Judah could read to the AI and get gamified, fun feedback at the level at which they're practicing reading. So much time being created for Mrs. P. And what are the other students doing? They're hanging with their chatbots. Chatbots are conversation AI. Again, a tutor at every desk, just talking to students on things they struggle with, giving them feedback. And by the way, chatbots need not be in English. Just think of all the students in our country and across the world that are not learning in their native tongue. Tutor at their desk. We're giving Mrs. P so much more time, and she'll tell you she wants to create new lesson plans, and her AI can help her with that too. Generative AI can create personalized content for different students. Mrs. P doesn't need to be an expert in university science to allow Lily her passion, nor does she know all there needs to be known about dynamic reasoning to help Judah with that dyslexic skill. So she can give different content, but she can give it in different ways too. The AI learns that Gideon needs short spurts of focused attention to do best with his ADHD mind. It learns that Judah wants more visual representations, and maybe Chipo wants more written representations. All of this, all the time, is giving us so much more time and capacity, giving feedback to Mrs. P. My own son is 15 and he's dyslexic, and he has, with increased success, used text to speech in the past so that he can read with his ears, that's what we call it, better than most 15-year-olds I know. and more using predictive text and dictation, all AI, to eliminate what could be disability for him and give him a chance to show off his killer vocabulary. His story is a whole talk of his own, and maybe he needs to come and give it one day. But back to Mrs. P's classroom, I imagine something very special happening, because the more she uses the AI and realizes she doesn't have to do what machines can do, the more she does what only she can do. The more she coaches kids like Chipo to manage their anxiety and to unlock in all her students the future skill of emotional intelligence. The more she coaches them in critical thinking, in being able to ask good questions and have tolerance for different views and for your own. The more she encourages them to contemplate, to create, to advocate for themselves and for others. I don't think Mrs. P and the King are dreamers. I think they're early adopters. And I think their willingness to look at wonderfully wired kids and say, what gold mine are we not mining here? Is the way we need to start looking at all children. And armed with our superpower of AI, offering them individualized education that doesn't just help and support in areas of challenge, but unlocks future skills that they will need. Because for us to help them thrive tomorrow, we need to start doing something differently today.